supporting you today. Hey, Kalina, this has been an interesting start. I mean, let's just hope for the best and then make sure we give some feedback to Instagram. How about it? That all of these things need to work like they should, don't you think?
Yes, I know. And I would love to share the live with my account, but I don't want to jinx it. So what I'll do is I'll record it and repost it.
Yeah, no problem at all. Hey, we're talking about American cuisine and in particular Southern style cooking, and you are the queen of Southern style cooking over there. You have a very interesting blog, Spilling the Sweet Tea, and you've got over 20,000 people on Instagram alone supporting you. They love your recipes. You're going to showcase 2 of them for us today. So take us through what you're going to do. Make us hungry.
Yes. So I am making for you guys collard greens, Southern style collard greens, and candy yams. So I'm excited to share my version of collard greens and candy yams because everyone makes them different. But I'm doing it the Shirley May way. That was my mother. She was an amazing cook. She taught me how to cook. So the recipes that I share with my my TikTok family and my Instagram family are recipes that my mother taught me. So I'm excited to share with you guys today.
Okay, memories on a plate. Let's go.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you want to start with first? You want to start with collard greens or the candy yams? I have both of them kind of like the magic of, I guess, this type of process. So
oh, how about we start with candied yams? Australians have heard a lot about that dish, and so we're very interested to know how to cook it. You're going to have to move your camera down so we can see what it is you're doing as you go.
1 second.
All right, and whilst Kalina is adjusting her screen, I'm from the Travel Writers Radio show here in Australia, and we feature amazing people like Kalina on the show talking about all things food and travel. So if you are looking for international interviews to listen to, please go ahead and stop by on our radio show account, and please join me on my lives as well. Okay, Kalina, we can almost see what you're doing. You need to turn your camera down just a little bit. Okay, yeah, perfect. Go for it.
Yeah, hold it up so you can see. So what I did was I got a sweet potato, right? This is what we call a sweet potato in America, and then a yam, just to show people the difference, because a sweet potato and a yam are completely different. Yams are grown in more tropical areas. So my husband actually bought this yesterday because he's Jamaican. He was born in Jamaica. So when he makes a yam, he does it differently than how I make candied yams or sweet potatoes. So I kind of wanted to show you guys the difference before I started making the recipes. So as you can see, totally different in color. This is a sweet potato, and this is a yam. This is a yellow yam. And I think there's also a white yam, and then sweet potatoes also come in purple as well. So those are the key differences. Most yams are used in stew, but in the South, we candy our sweet potatoes, or we call them candy yams, right? So it's cooked with a lot of sugar, nutmeg, cinnamon, butter, so on and so forth. So what I'll do is show you guys how I make mine the Shirley May way. So I'm just going to peel my sweet potato. And I try to use small sweet potatoes when I'm making candy yams. I don't like buying larger ones. I like using smaller ones.
Now,
what'd you say, Bridgett?
For the working mums and the professional people who don't have time to dice those sweet potatoes, does it work equally well on your recipe to buy those pre-diced sweet potatoes you find in the store and still do your recipe?
No, I have not seen them cut the way I cut them. So I cut them a very specific way when I make them. It doesn't take very long to cut up the sweet potato. So what I do is I just cut mine like this, peel them, and I cut them in rounds. And I want to show you the thickness. This is the thickness.
Okay, so it's about a centimeter?
Yes, that's what you want to look for. You want to make sure they're all that size, so they cook evenly in the oven. Some people cook theirs on the stove. I bake mine in the oven. So there's a variety of different ways that you can make candy yams, but I bake mine because that's the way my mother did that, right? So I'll just cut up a few more and then add them to my Pyrex dish. So I bake mine in a Pyrex dish. Can you see me?
Yep, I can. Okay. Go ahead.
So I bake mine in a Pyrex dish. And I'll just show you how I season them. Now, I've been making this for so long, I eyeball.
Oh, you mean it's from memory, right?
Yes, I eyeball it. But the recipe is on my blog, spillingthesweettea.com. So it's under my holiday recipe collection. So there is a recipe that you can follow for this dish. So what I do is I start with lots of sugar. I'm making a small pan normally for Thanksgiving or Christmas. I'll make it again for New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I'll do a larger pan. What I do is I start with, I'm gonna hold it up so you can see. Start with
that's good.
sprinkling sugar on top.
Now that's a heck of a lot of sugar.
It's a lot of sugar. That's why they're candy, right? So that's just about a cup. That's about right. So I start with my sugar. Then I have ground nutmeg. And I like more nutmeg than cinnamon. So I just sprinkle nutmeg on top. And I suppose that looks about right.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that's about a teaspoon or so of nutmeg, or maybe more, maybe a tablespoon.
Maybe a teaspoon and a half. Yeah.
Teaspoon and a half. Okay.
So then I'm going to add my cinnamon. A little bit of cinnamon goes on top. Now I add a little bit of water, because when you bake these in the oven, they create their own water, their own juices. So you only need a little bit of water. But before that, I almost forgot. You need vanilla extract. So I add vanilla extract into my candy yams, because that's what my mother did. So I go in each corner and just do a little bit of vanilla extract and one in the center. That's how I measure it.
Okay.
That's how I saw her do it. So on the site, it's about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. The next thing you want to do is just add a little bit of water. Like I said, you just need a tiny bit of water. So just a little bit in each corner. And then I mix it up, right? So then sugars and the nutmeg and cinnamon are incorporated, and just let the water kind of wet the sugar just a little bit. Because like I said, when you bake these, they're going to make their own juices.
So what's that smelling like before you even bake them? Because you've got extract in there, you've got nutmeg, you've got sugar.
It smells like home. It smells like, it smells a little bit like pie, like a sweet potato pie a little bit, because of the vanilla extract. But it's so fragrant because of the cinnamon and the nutmeg and the vanilla extract. Yeah. So I have it mixed up about like this. It's not going to be full of water. It's just a tiny bit of water, because when you bake it, and I'll show you what the finished product looks like, it's going to make its own water. I always add maybe a little bit of nutmeg, just so when it bakes, it has that caramelization on top. And then the last step is butter.
Okay.
Everything is better with butter, right?
Absolutely.
So you want to add just pats of butter on top. About maybe 5 or 6 pats of butter on top. And then you bake this in the oven on 400 degrees until they're nice and tender. So this is what it looks like. This is how I would put it in the oven. And like I said, it makes its own juices. So let me show you the finished product. One second.
Oh, yes. The joys of quick cooking on Instagram.
Yes. We don't have time for it. It takes about 45
No, we don't. No, we don't.
45
but
minutes to bake them.
You're a clever cook, so there you go.
So I made these earlier today. They come out looking like this.
Well, looks like a lovely golden orangey yellow on the top, which is great. It means
Yes.
well,
You can see the cinnamon and the nutmeg on top. And you see
absolutely
how much juice it made? It makes a lot of juice, like this syrup that's made once you bake it. So like literally, it goes from this to what I just showed you, where you have a lot of syrup. And I'll kind of try to show you what one looks like. There you go.
Yeah,
you
that looks
beautiful.
Coming
out of it. It's really
absolutely
sweet, but it is like the best with the trifecta for Thanksgiving: mac and cheese, collard greens, and candy yams. Like you have to have them like next to each other on your plate, so you get the juice of the yams and the cheesiness of the mac and cheese. It just all goes together.
It's fantastic. And one of the things that happens during caramelization is that all of these juices with the sugar gets into a deep brown and then brings out the flavor of that sweet potato, which is great, which is what we want. And I suppose that's the joy, right? Candied yams.
Yes, that is the joy. I mean, it's a really easy and simple dish to make. And it's just so good. It is so delicious.
Oh, absolutely. What's the history of the dish, by the way?
So it varies, right? So a lot of people sometimes put sweet marshmallows on theirs. Traditionally, African Americans don't really do that. We make them the way I just showed you how to make them, and it goes back to slavery times. You know, and the slaves would just have what was given to them from the kitchen, and they would, you know, chop up these sweet potatoes and make, you know, this dish for their family. So it goes back years and years to slavery times. It's kind of where candy yams kind of was born.
Oh, absolutely. A history on a plate. I always say when it comes to Southern style cooking, it just reminds me that we can eat history literally. With all of the ingredients. I was reading up because, you know, I was born in Africa, and all of the ingredients that people were left with, they did something with. So it's the African diaspora, the Indian diaspora, they actually took very little and made much out of it, which is awesome. Anyway, I'm going to let you go back to showing us the second dish, because we'll be running out of time real soon. So the next one is what?
Collard greens.
Oh, yeah. Now, this I've heard a lot about. In Australia, we don't have collard greens, by the way. So what's your substitute ingredient for us?
So the substitute ingredient for you guys would be kale. So what I did was I bought kale to show you what the difference is in the leaves between kale and collard greens. So this is what you would see in Australia, which is a kale leaf, right? Yeah. Collard greens and kale are very similar. They're just not as curled at the ends, but this is a collard green leaf.
Okay.
Yes, that is the collard green leaf. And they come in like bunches in the grocery store. So I grew up in, you know, Eastern North Carolina, as we've talked about before, and we had a garden in my backyard. So my mother would grow collard greens. So we didn't even go to the store to get our collard greens. She would go out back and pick collard greens from the garden. But this is what they look like, and I'll show you really quickly how my mom would pick her collard greens. That's what she would call it, pick the collard greens. You have to first wash these very, very well. 4 or 5, 6 times. I wash mine in cold water, a little bit of white vinegar, and I just make sure they're extremely clean, because, you know, dirt and bugs can get on them, you know, when they're transported from the gardens to the grocery store. So you have to wash them really well. So my mom, she would slap her greens on the back of her hand like this, right? To get any bugs off. She was old school. And then she would just take the greens and remove the stem. So some people chop their stems up in their collard greens. I don't do that because that's not how my mom made them. So I do it the way she showed me how to make them. So I remove the large stem from the greens, right? Yeah. So once you remove the stem, they look like this. You want to make sure they're clean. So you clean them several times. So once you have them clean and you have a couple of them stacked up, you want to cut them, okay?
Okay.
So I have
Yeah.
probably maybe 8 leaves here on my cutting board. So
Now, just real quickly, Kalina, why white vinegar? Why do you wash them in white vinegar?
That's what my mother did. It just helps get any sand and dirt off of them. That is what she did. So that's why I do it. You can also wash them in just cold water, you know, but I add a little bit of vinegar because vinegar just kind of helps pull any gunk off of.
Okay.
Yeah. So you roll them up like this. And then you
can see them. Yep.
Can you see?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So you roll them up just like this. And then you cut them into ribbons. So there's 2 ways that you can cut up your collard greens. Some people like the tear method, where you literally just tear the leaves, right? I like the roll and ribbon method. So I just cut mine into these little ribbons, right? And they're cooked down like this. So you have your ribbons. So I cook my collard greens in ham hocks because in my house, swine is fine, right? Some people cook theirs in turkey tails, turkey legs, turkey necks. Some people don't cook them in any meat at all because they're vegetarian or vegan. I was brought up on ham hocks, and I still cook mine in ham hocks. So I wanted to show you what a ham hock looks like. I get mine from home in North Carolina. So when I go home to North Carolina, I stock up on my ham hocks. So I use about 2 of these in a big pot. So what I do is I use chicken broth. So I use a carton of chicken broth and then water, and bring it to a boil until my meat is nice and tender. So I started boiling some ham hocks.
So I just want to tell the Australians who are watching, your ham hocks is really going to be the equivalent of pancetta or that sort of family. So we can use substitutes.
So I'm not sure. You need like a fatty type
Very fatty,
pork. Yes. You need a fatty type of pork. Or do you guys have turkey wings, smoked turkey wings, or?
We do.
You do. Yeah, you can use that as well. You can use any meat you want. Like I just like this, what I grew up on. But you just want to cook it until it's nice and tender. I use a little bit of salt. You don't want to use too much because the chicken broth has salt. Crushed red pepper.
I want to take some comments from the audience. I can see the crushed red pepper. Heart Soul Joy is saying, hi ladies. Hey, nice to have you here. If you have any questions or comments for Kalina, simply put them in the chat and I'll ask her about it. Or there is someone called Jazz who's definitely a fan of yours, and she's here to support you. So lots of people online watching you do what you do best. I'll let you get on. Yeah, I'll let you get on with it.
I really appreciate it. I really do. So once your meat is nice and tender, you just add your greens into the pot. That's it. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I always cook mine with a whole onion. Some people cut it up and they saute it. I don't do that. I put a whole onion in my pot, and then I also put a couple cloves of garlic. So once the greens are nice and tender, I remove the whole garlic, the whole onion, and I just have the cooked meat and the cooked greens. It takes about an hour, hour and a half, depending on how many greens you have, to cook collard greens. It's an all-day process because you have to wash them, you have to pick them, you have to cut them up. It is an extensive process. So I make a lot of greens at one time, and then I freeze them, you know, so I have some throughout the year. Because this is the time of year for Southern folks. We eat collard greens and black-eyed peas for New Year's Day. That is a tradition, as well as some type of pork. So greens and black-eyed peas, eating them on New Year's Day brings you luck and wealth in the new year. So my entire life, I have eaten collard greens, black-eyed peas, normally a rib, typically, on New Year's Day. I have not missed it.
All right, okay. And your life is full of good fortune, so hey, something must be working.
Yes, something is definitely working. Definitely. So that's pretty much how you make collard greens. I'll show you the final product. So I will say, in North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina, where I'm from, we have another step. But most people, when their collard greens are done, they look like this. You can see a little bit of meat in here. They've got nice and tender. But in Eastern North Carolina, where I'm from, some people go an extra step and they chop their greens. So my mother, what she would do is she used to get hers in a bowl. She would press out some of the pot liquor, as we call it. And I can talk about that in a second. And then she would use a chopper and chop them a little finer. I got a lot of hate on TikTok about this, but I say in my video, this is how we do it in Eastern North Carolina. Everybody doesn't do it this way, but they come out like a little bit finer than what I just showed. So where I'm from and how I grew up, we would chop our collard greens into smaller pieces. So.
Well, that reminds me of when I'm cooking kale, it looks exactly like that. When you cook kale down, it turns into that similar color. So definitely us Australians can try that try your recipe with kale for sure.
Yes, you absolutely can. You can use it. You can try it with kale, cook it with chicken broth, some type of salty pork and or smoked turkey, and then the onion and garlic and a little bit of crushed red pepper, and you have Southern style greens. And the other thing I was going to mention was once we take the greens out the pot, we don't throw away the liquid. So if I was ever sick, had a cough, felt like I was coming out with a cold, my mother would warm up the liquid from the bottom of the pot, and we called it pot liquor. And you drink that. It's all the nutrients have been cooked into the liquid of the collard greens. So we would drink cups of that to feel better. And it would just kind of make you feel better because it was nice and warm. And then like all the nutrients from the collard greens would make you feel better.
So that's a home recipe for any sort of colds. Hey, it's a perfect way to feel better now, especially when we have a pandemic going on. So I think a lot of people are going to take your recipe and do something with it with the liquor.
Yes, exactly. I think one of my high school friends said pot liquor is life. Yes, like it is. In North, it is life. It is so good. It's like drinking a bunch of nutrients. I mean, I guess if you do the smoothie, and a lot of people put kale in smoothies and things like that, it's just kind of our way of, kind of drinking our nutrients, I guess.
Now, you mentioned Shirley May, and she's obviously, she's your mom, and her memories are very dear to you. Tell us some of that kitchen memories that you can remember during your childhood, because you love cooking, and it's come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So where did it start from?
It comes from my mom. I don't want to get emotional, but she is the reason why I cook. And I lost her as a junior. And she would always tell me when I was cooking, this literally happened to me the other day, because my family room is connected to my kitchen. So I had something on the stove and I went to sit down and I started watching TV. My mother would always say, you can't sit down and cook. You have to stand over that pot because it's going to burn. You can't sit down and cook. So my memories with her in the kitchen were canning. My mother loved to can. So she would can pickles. She would make peach preserves. She would make pear preserves. She would make all types of Southern dishes. And she loved to entertain. So, we would have a lot of parties when I was growing up. So she just loved to cook and just have everybody come to the house and have, just everybody enjoy her food. She wasn't a huge baker, so she would bake every now and then. I posted about an apple walnut cake that she would bake all the time. That was like her signature dessert. The apple walnut raisin cake. She would make a raisin pound cake, and then she had this other non-baked dessert that she would make all the time. But she was a powerhouse. She just loved cooking, and she got it from her mom. So when I was growing up, I grew up in a small business. So my parents would stay in the business until about 5 or 6 o'clock, but I would get out of school around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So when I got to maybe 6th or 7th grade, my mother said, when I get home, you need to have something started, right? Because they had to stay at our business until it closed. And that's kind of how I started cooking on my own, was making meals for my family before they got home from our business. So I have been in the kitchen my entire life, honestly.
It's fantastic. And also, I can see your mom's influence in your business because you sell homemade jams and preserves. And
Yes.
that was something she loved doing. So there you go. That's Shirley May coming out through you.
Yes. Yeah, I channel her so much. Like, it is, she was, both my parents were entrepreneurs. And, you know, I know COVID shifted my mindset. You know, I've always kind of just, I never was thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur until COVID hit. And I used like a lot of the things I saw them do and all the skills that she taught me in the kitchen to build Spilling the Sweet Tea. And it brings me so much joy because my mom and dad showed me so many things, so many life lessons, especially around food, but also around business. So I'm grateful that I learned that from them. And I'm able to not only pass it on to my daughter, but build a brand and a legacy around what they taught me.
Oh, absolutely. Heart Soul Joy saying, this is just a comment, a mix of kale and greens is great too. Absolutely. I agree with you. Definitely something we're going to try. All right. So you've shown us what collard greens looks like, and Australians are thrilled that you have shown us how to do this. And candied yams both goes onto your Thanksgiving table. Does it go onto your Christmas table too, or it's just Thanksgiving?
So it depends on whose household, right? This year I did not make a traditional Christmas dinner. We had filet and lobster tails for Christmas dinner.
Wow.
We have done that, kind of repeated our Thanksgiving menu for Christmas. When I was growing up, that's exactly what happened. We would have turkey again and ham again, collard greens and everything again. But, you know, in our family, our tradition switches a little bit for Christmas. So, because I also make a little bit of those things for New Year's Day. So like I said, New Year's Day, we have to have collard greens and we have to have black-eyed peas for luck and prosperity and wealth in the new year. So
okay, fantastic. I'll be doing some Southern style black-eyed peas and collard green style cooking for New Year's for sure. Now that I know all of this blessing will surround me for New Year's Day.
Yes, you know, so funny. So I made, I had my traditional food 2020, January 1st, 2020. I remade another pot of black-eyed peas, probably in April, because I'm like, it didn't work. We are stuck in the house. All of these things are happening. So I don't know. It's one of those things. You have to have cornbread, Bridget. So like when you have your black-eyed peas and your collard greens, you have to have cornbread as well. So it's pork, cornbread, black-eyed peas, and collard greens for New Year's Day.
Now, do you have a recipe for cornbread on your TikTok or your Instagram?
I do. Yeah, I have several.
Fantastic.
So I have traditional cornbread. I have a jalapeno and cheese cornbread. And then also in the South, we also have hush puppies. So they're like fried pieces of cornbread. That is traditionally for Thanksgiving. We eat that with our Thanksgiving meal, not, you know, cornbread that's baked. We fry our cornbread. There's so many different ways that you can use cornmeal and make a cornbread, but my favorite is a hush puppy. I love hush puppies.
It sounds delicious.
Yes, my aunt and my mom made the best hush puppies. So yeah, I love those. Yeah.
All right, so we're almost, well, definitely out of time, but I want to talk about your books real quick because you're an author. You have 2 books out there. Tell me real quick about it and tell our audience who's watching about how to get hold of your books before we end off.
Yeah, so I have a cookbook called All About the Jam, which features different ways that you can use jam and incorporate it into different dishes. So, you know, you can use jam obviously on a piece of toast, but you can also shake it into a cocktail. You can use it into a barbecue, use it in a barbecue sauce. There's so many different ways you can use jam. So I wanted to show people the various ways outside of a piece of toast you can use jam. So there's about 18 recipes with blackberry, raspberry, and peach preserve that you can use my recipes in the jam to make various dishes. So that was put out in March of 2021. I can't believe like all of this has happened in this one year, but I put the book out in March of 2021. And then shortly after, I got the idea to write a children's book. I have a daughter, she's 6 years old, and she loves to cook with me. And when I'm cooking with her, I'm sharing with her, you know, what the different kitchen tools and kitchen techniques are. But I thought it would be really cool to share that with other children, right? So W is for whisk, Maya. A is for apron. C is for cutting board. So I got the idea to write an alphabet book that teaches kids about cooking techniques and kitchen tools from A to Z to empower them in the kitchen and introduce them to the joy of cooking. I feel like cooking is a life skill. It's something everybody should know, right? How to put together simple dishes. And I think if you start young, right, at 5, 6 years old, as you're learning your alphabet, just have an interest in cooking. Yeah.
Well, you've been very smart, and you've given your daughter a life skill from a very young age. She definitely won't go hungry. That's for sure.
No, she definitely will not. And you can find my books on Amazon. So they're on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, as well as BooksAmelia.com, and then on my website, SpillingTheSweetTea.com. So
there you go. There you go. So if you want to follow Kaleena Davis and her endeavors and new endeavors coming up in the future, please follow her on Instagram, on her website, her blog, which she's had for a while. Spelling the sweet tea, by the way, significance of the name?
Yeah, so it's a play on words. So in America, spilling the tea is kind of like I'm sharing the gossip. Like, this is the word on the street. So I just, in the South, we drink a lot of sweet tea. That is like the drink of the South. So it's really just a play on words. I'm sharing with you my Southern recipes. That's really what it is. I'm spilling the tea on, Southern recipes. And then also I have a lot of 30-minute meals for busy parents. So that's how the name came to be. That's
fantastic. Well, it's not just
sweet tea.
Spill all you want. We'll take it all. It's not just for parents, by the way. It's for people like myself who are very busy and need to have a good meal. I'm into cooking, so definitely we're always looking for ideas. And Australians love Southern cuisine, like I've told you at the very beginning. So we're going to have a fun time recreating your recipes from your TikTok videos, and I watch them. It's really easy to follow, by the way, which is what I love about great TikTok videos and social media shows that from people like yourself. So all the best for the future. We'll be keeping in touch here between Australia and myself and yourself, and we'll be following your work with interest for sure. Can't wait to see all that you get to do in your future.
Thank you so much, Bridget. I really appreciate you having me today. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we powered through, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share, my Southern food with Australians. I love that. I love that they're fascinated with Southern food because I'm passionate about sharing. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, you want a good comment? This is from JebK78. I want my children to remember, love, and respect me the way Kaleena and I have our precious mamas. How awesome.
Oh, thank you.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. I say all the time, both my parents have passed away, but the Bible says to honor your mother and your father, and your days will be long. And even though they're in heaven, I will always do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great job, Kaleena from I Am Princess. Awesome job. There you absolutely great job. We all agree, and this is not the end of the lives. Hopefully come April we get to host you for Easter again with a special recipe from the South. We're all obsessed with the South anyway, so how about Easter we get together and hopefully your audience can join us then again.
Yes, absolutely. I would love that. Yeah, the menu is totally different from Easter. Deviled eggs and ham and potato salad. Yeah, so definitely. I would
there
love
you go. There you go. All right. Speak to you soon, Kaleena.
All right. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you guys for joining.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.